So I said there's going to be 10 reasons or 10 reasons why, potentially you're not getting more business out of your website. And so reason number one, I'm going to say your digital footprint is too small. And what's a digital footprint? Where a digital footprint, it means that every place on the internet where you show up. Now, I've got 3 examples of 3 different digital footprints, and to just hopefully kind of make it crystal clear. So the first example is you have a website. Okay, you're on the internet. Good for you, and that's a great start. And quite frankly, I don't know why any business wouldn't be on the internet today, and hardly any probably are not. But this is like the minimum. The minimum entry into digital footprint or digital marketing is you got a website. Now, the interesting thing about websites is your digital footprint is some of you might have a 10-page website, and some of you might have a 50-page website. So even with just in this one right here, people can have bigger digital footprints. So if I'm a design, build, remodeling contractor in Denver, Colorado, and I have a website, and there's 100 other guys like me, we all have different size websites, right? Anywhere from 5 pages to maybe 500 pages. But website is just, hey, you're in the game, good for you. And then the next step, and this is like the 3 stages of digital marketing, if you will. The next step is you're like, we're going to add a blog to our website. And you notice that the blog circle is bigger than the website because people with their websites typically don't add new web pages very often. As a matter of fact, I'm guessing for a lot of you, if you don't have a blog, you haven't added a new web page to your website in, quite a while. And I'm talking months or maybe even years. That's okay. I mean, if you don't have time and everything else is going well, then that's great. But the cool thing about a blog is once you start it, this is where your website grows. So it's actually a part of your website, but it's the growing part. And I'll show you in a later one of the 10 things that, how to make sure that when you grow this blog, you grow it in a way that's relevant and useful to the people you're trying to attract to your business. So whether you're a designer and you're just looking for people looking for a designer, whether it's contractors or homeowners, or whether you're an actual remodeling contractor and you're looking for people that need to remodel their home or add a room to their house, the blog is a far better way to do that than your website. And then the third step in the evolution, if you will, is what I call the hub and spoke model. And so the hub and spoke model is something I learned from a gentleman named Lee Oden who owns Top Rank Marketing. And I literally spent, when I discovered that Lee Oden was in the Twin Cities, I wanted to go work for him, but my resume wasn't enough to get his company to even look at me. So I spent 2 years of my life trying to get my hands on projects and jobs and work that I could do so I could put it on my resume so that when there was an opening at Top Rank Marketing, I could get my resume in there, and then Lee Oden would say, well, at least his resume looks like he's doing it. Let's get him in the door. And so I got him a door and spent 2 years with him, and I can't even begin to tell you what I learned. But one of the things Lee Oden always talked about, 2 of them was he always said, when we had a new client and we said, well, we're struggling with this client, first question he'd always say is, what does their digital footprint look like? And he meant size and quality, but then he always talked about the hub and the spoke. He said, this is the model. So your website is the center of your hub, the blog is the bigger outer ring, and then the spoke is all the other channels that you might use, including email. And so this is kind of shows you the relationship between your website, your blog, and Twitter, and Google Plus, and House. I think a lot of you are on House, and this is Flickr and YouTube. So this particular example right here, this is the best way to have a digital footprint that grows your business. All right. Now, you might be saying to yourselves, okay, yep, I kind of get that, but so how big is my digital footprint anyway? And so I'm going to show you 2 ways to access your digital footprint or to figure it out. And the 2 things I'm going to show you, you're also going to be able to use if you're a design, build, remodeling contractor in Memphis, Tennessee, you're going to be able to use either of these methods to see, compare your digital footprint to your competitors. Because at the end of the day, when somebody does a Google search for a remodeling contractor in Memphis, Tennessee, somebody comes up number 1 and somebody comes up number 2 and so on and so forth. And so the whole idea is, I want to be number 1 for whatever people are searching for. But let me just show you one way to see how big your footprint is. So what I did here is I actually used Dan. Sorry, Dan. Hope you don't mind. And
that's just fun.
So so if you go and open a browser, and if you go into Google, and if you want to see how many pages your website has, and this is indexed in Google, all you do is you do site : and then your domain name.com. And you don't have to go www or HTTPS or any of that stuff. It's just go site : chiefexperts.com like I did with Dan. And what this tells me is, it says right here, if you can see on my screen, about 1,970 results. So what this means is Google has identified and indexed 1,970 results for chiefexperts.com. Now, that's a pretty good size footprint for a small business. I mean, it's huge, because I was looking at some digital footprints for some remodeling, design build remodelers, that I know Dan works with before this call, and I saw some of them that their digital footprint was like 9. The number was 9, single digit 9. And that's, again, neither good nor bad, but at the end of the day, the bigger the number, the bigger your net. And Dan's heard me and just laughs. I always use this analogy of fishing. Imagine if you were fishing in the ocean, and you were fishing and I was fishing. We had 2 boats, and we were fishing in the same area, and we were fishing with nets. And you had a net the size of a volleyball court, and I had a net the size of a soccer field. So who's going to catch more fish? Well, I think the answer is painfully obvious. And so when you look at this and you check your digital footprint, this is really referring to the size of your net in the ocean called the internet. So Dan's got a pretty big net. By the way, just for fun, I know some of you are on House, and I'm just going to show you what House looks like. And you know what? Before I do, I'm going to ask you just in the chat box to just type in how many pages do you think Google has indexed for House. Now, Dan has 1,970. I'm going to push this button in a second, but
no cheating, you guys.
Yeah, don't cheat. But how many pages do you think Google has indexed for House? And are you getting any feedback, Dan?
I got 1. Okay, 1,200,000, 2,100, 20,000.
All right. Well, let me push the button. The suspense is killing me, because I did this earlier today and I about fell out of my chair. 11,500,000 results.
Wow. Oh, Steve.
11 million. Yeah, 11
Steve Murphy
million.
was close, 10 million.
Yeah, right. So, this is insane. And so you hear a lot of people in this business talking about House. Well, there's a reason they do, because they get 11,500,000 pages showing up on Google every day. So, if you're not already using House, you should be as part of your digital marketing footprint. But this is just a difference of what something, and by the way House does this, incidentally, House got to 11,500,000 page results because of people like you who set up their profile and then set up idea books and then set up all the things that we set up. So every time you or somebody else sets something up, that's a new page on House, and that's what's called user-generated content. So House grew to 1 million pages in no time with people like Dan and all of you on this call building out your profiles, adding pictures, adding kitchen design things. So good for them. It's a great thing, but it's good for us to be aware of that so we can leverage House too, right? Now, the other way to look at your digital footprint. So this one, the first one I showed you, is just how much does Google know? How much does Google have you as far as your digital footprint goes? But that's not the whole story, because there's really no social media in here. There's a lot of stuff that isn't in here, right? So the other way to figure out your social footprint is to just go in and do a brand search. So in this case, what I did was, I think this is working. Oh, here we go. I just said, okay, now I'm going to take Chief Experts, Dan's site, and I'm not going to do that site : thing. I'm simply going to put in Chief Experts and just do a search, right? Like and so here's how you can see. So the first thing is his site comes up, which obviously is pretty critical, right? So if you type in your brand into Google and your website doesn't come up number 1, we need to talk, because that shouldn't happen. But the other thing you'll notice about Dan's listing in Google is he's got these little sub-listings. So he's got one called Login, one called Dan Bauman, one called Join, Support, and this is pretty cool. And there are things you can do to influence Google to do this for you, but it's not like you can't just call them up and say, hey, Google, give me like 6 little sub links, would you? And that's something that we can, talk about a different day. But anyway, but my point is this. So I type in Chief Experts, which is Dan's brand, and then I scroll down past his website, which, should be there, of course. And then I see the very next listing is Facebook, chiefexperts.com. And then the next one is Facebook, facebook.com/chiefexperts.info. And then the next one is a YouTube video. And then the next one is LinkedIn. It's a LinkedIn profile for Chief Expert. And then there's one that says top 25 Chief Expert profiles. Somebody added Dan to that. And so what you're starting to see is, Dan's footprint is much more than the, I think, 1,900 pages that Google had for him. It's bigger than that.
So just a little FYI for everybody on the call here. That's just me. I don't have employees, okay? Over my career, in the time I've had Chief Experts, I've had a part-time office person and a part-time bookkeeper. So everything that I've done there is because I've done it. So yeah, I spend I live on the internet every day pretty much, but don't think that I'm some sort of big company. Okay? So you guys, we're no different. So you can do this too.
Yeah, and I'll show you exactly how we did this with Dan. I mean, I'll show you exactly what we did with Dan, and I'll show you the real numbers behind the scenes, because Dan's right. It's not like, well, Dan's a big company and he's got a staff. Actually, if you got a staff, Dan, I'm not aware of it.
yeah, it's me, myself, and I.
I know, right? Oh, that's right. You got a staff of 3, so you're killing it. Good for you, buddy. So anyway, I want to just even back up a slide. But so the whole idea here is, remember my analogy. It's like fishing. If there's 2 design, build, remodeling contractors that are fishing in Kansas City, and one of them has a net the size of a volleyball court, and the other one has a net the size of a soccer field, the person with the soccer field net's probably going to catch more fish. It's pretty safe to say. And this is what a soccer field net looks like, and this is what a volleyball court looks like. So again, just to recap, here's a couple of ways you can sample each one and see where you're at.